Welcome to the Not Null Podcast. I'm just an AI voice. But here are your real hosts, Kevin Doyle, Bobby Davis, Paul Bratzlavsky, and Sarah Kimmel.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast, the tech podcast where we talk about everything from AI breakthroughs to VR's new realities. This week, I'm joined by Bobby Davis, Paul Bratzlavsky, and Sarah Kimmel. Coming up in this episode, Apple allows game emulators into the App Store. Did MKBHDs review kill the Humane AI pin? And Ernie, the 200 million user chatbot you've likely never heard of. And then we'll wrap up with our null, not null recommendation section. So let's talk game emulation. So particularly on iOS. So game emulators have been banned from the Apple App Store for a long time now. The only way that you could run these game emulators before was if you jailbroke your phone. There's some other ways you can do it, but generally you had to jailbreak your phone, which basically voids your warranty and against terms of service for Apple stuff. But a lot of people would. It was one of the reasons that people actually jailbroke their phones was to run game emulators. But they are now allowed officially on app stores globally. So it's basically part of Apple's compliance with that European Commission's new anti-steering guidelines. That's why we're seeing these. And Apple have said, okay, here you go. You can do these. So basically, if you don't know, an emulator it's a piece of software. It emulates the original gaming hardware. So it allows you to run most games. So let's say we're talking about systems like Game Boys, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, what else? Nintendo or NES, Nintendo Entertainment Systems, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, PlayStation in some cases, a whole bunch of these older game systems. Sega Genesis, yeah. A bunch of old systems that you can now, basically, you can emulate the old hardware in software form on iOS. So a couple of these have come out now. They've been put on the App Store. One in particular, the iGBA, which is the Game Boy Advance emulator. It was in the App Store for about a week. I did manage to snag it. I do still have it on my phone. It does work still, but it's no longer available in the store. And it's because apparently it got pulled by Apple because it used somebody else's copyright work, which is interesting.
It's kind of the whole point of game emulators.
Right. It used a clone of something called GBA4 iOS, which is a decade-old emulator, apparently. He just ripped off the code and he put it up as his own, and so they pulled it down. Since then, though, another one's been put up, one called Bimmy, which is a Nintendo emulator, was up for a second. This one came down because the guy who put it up, the developer, pulled it down himself because he believed he was going to have some kind of copyright issues, which is what we'll talk about here in a second. Also today, there's a brand new one today. The guy that originally wrote GBA4 iOS has released his. It's called Delta. And that came out today. It's this app right here. So this app, not only is it Game Boy, but it also does Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, and DS all in one application. And you can run all these games. So here's how this basically works. You can play these games. You can legally play open source games on it. Or you can illegally play any game that you like from any of these systems because they're just downloadable online through something called a ROM. So here's my argument for this. Anybody that tells you they're running homebrew, open source, whatever on these is just absolutely full of crap. It's the 0.0001% of people that are doing that. Everybody's playing illegal ROMs on these, and this is why Apple didn't allow it in the first place. So, Bobby, what do you think? Do you think anybody's playing these without the illegal games on them? Do you think it's piracy?
Can I get Pokemon Black and White on it?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Any game that you has ever been released. Yes, you can.
Yeah, because I remember my kids growing up and they were playing Pokemon games. I remember having to help them, and I think it was Black and White one time on a DS.
Yep.
And I'm a hardcore gamer, so like I'm used to like shooters or whatever, and I'm thinking, what am I doing with my life here? Like this little bike has to run through this thing. I'm like, what are we doing? We got to get to better games, guys. I help you then.
Yep.
So the question I have here: who gets sued here by Nintendo if
Everybody.
Something happens? Is it
100%.
Apple or the creator?
No. Well, Apple's going to say no because you forced them to put this on their store.
And
the EU has literally told them they have to put this on their store to remain in the EU.
And that's what I'm getting at. I don't know if it's passive aggressive is the term for this, but like Apple is basically being like, all right, okay, you want to play this game? You want to play this game? We're okay with this game.
Yep.
You know, you want to, and so
Nintendo will be suing somebody. Yeah, yes, I agree. It's just who.
That's what they do. That's what they do.
So does Nintendo sue Apple on purpose so that Apple can turn around and say, we don't want this?
Maybe.
Ooh. They make a deal with Nintendo to sue them. Yeah.
Yeah. Please sue us. Please.
Yeah,
we'll give you 20 million.
Also, somebody put a Switch emulator on the Apple Store so I could play some Switch.
Switch games.
I don't know if Switch is up there yet because I think the hardware's too advanced, I think.
Yeah.
But there might be. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I think iPhone is way better. Like Nintendo's really known for underdeveloping their, GPUs for
I've never heard someone say, well, that Switch hardware is really advanced.
Right.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I don't think, do you even have a Switch? Like, I'm just
I don't think it's that advanced. I think it's the emulation part of
it. My favorite videos to watch about Switch is like when they port a game that's clearly not made for the Switch, and like the ingenuity these engineers have to go through to make it look not like a potato, but it still does. It's like wow.
Here's the thing: there are still some games that you still can't even emulate because of something to do with the hardware. There were some games that actually had chips in the cartridge that had some kind of extra thing that's like very difficult to emulate. So even stuff from N64 days and those kind of like chips are still difficult to emulate. So it's not necessarily a hardware thing as much as, I don't know, it's something weird about them. That's why I say most games you can download as ROMs. Not all of them. Not all of them actually work. You can't really emulate all of them for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, it's just it's piracy, right? I mean, whatever way you want to put it, I put a threads up about this. Say, hey, anybody that thinks this isn't piracy and using it for any other reason is just delusional, right? And then somebody answered me back saying, like, yeah, but what's the moral issue with playing games that are 30 years old that you can no longer buy? And I'm like, good point. The point is then you don't like copyright because that's what you're fighting against. Yeah. You're saying I don't believe in copyright. Then
I think like it's a two-way argument because I've bought games on Steam, which
you rented the game on Steam.
The company, hold on a second. Let me finish my statement, please. All right, can I make a point?
You've taken his punchline.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I know. Way to take my thunder away from my... Anyway, so I bought the game. When you try to play it now, you can't. And it's no longer on Steam. And it used to be a AAA game in the back. So I rented the game for the amount of time for $70. Jesus Christ. And so I feel like preserving games, there's an argument to be made to preserve games through emulation.
Sure.
But it is like a fine line. But I still like I mean, I have very mixed feelings about Apple. I like the Apple phone. I don't know about like and their Apple products, but I know that, there's, I don't know. But it's hilarious to me how they're just able to do stuff like that. They're like not happy with the result, and they're like, you know what? Fine, we'll flood the market with all these emulators and let people have better experience playing their emulated games on wonderful iPhones rather than, let's say Nintendo Switch or something. I'm not saying there's a Nintendo Switch emulator there, but wouldn't be funny.
Now, these emulators already exist on Android, right? Because I don't play these kind of games, so I'm assuming that they already exist on Android, right?
For sure.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Yes. But I'm guessing the issue here is going to be the same thing we talked about before when you talk about when it becomes more of an issue in the US where Nintendo can still sell these things and they do still sell them. It's not, these aren't all cartridges that you can't buy right now. You can still buy a Nintendo. You can still buy the cartridges. There's still a market for this technically.
We still have original Nintendo. Yeah.
But the argument though here is the same as like I have ripped DVDs on my computer of the ones that I purchased, and I have and it's just a way to have a backup of the data, just like all
my
the
Plex
games
server is all
I
of
purchased.
That. Yeah.
Sure.
And I just wanted to have a digital copy. No, I did purchase all the stuff. But
here's the thing, look. You can go to this website right here and I can download Super Mario Brothers ROM and I'll have it on my phone in 30 seconds.
But if you own
that's
the
copyright.
game,
that's illegal.
But
I'm
I
not supposed to be able to do that.
But you could own the game and then you could rip it and run it on an emulator.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that's a good question. If I have because I legit have the original Nintendo cartridge for a lot of these games. If I have that cartridge and I download it here, am I violating copyright?
100%.
I think you are still, yes.
Right. I mean,
Yes.
but I think that's what Paul's point is. Like, I have a
but
DVD and I rip the DVD onto my Plex server. It's the same kind of thing.
But it's more of a bigger problem, isn't it? It's the problem is you can say like, while that seems like that might be morally okay, it's not legally okay. So it's like we have to change the copyright laws then. It's like it just is what it is. It just that's the way it is, and it's downloading these from this site and running them on your emulator isn't legal, right? You're violating copyright. But you can. I'm not saying that I did test this with a Mario game and get it to work. I'm not saying that, but it would.
But I'm not saying it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Donkey Kong on Delta is great because I wouldn't have played it because but I'm sure it is. And it would take you all of literally seconds to get this set up. We're talking about like the setup is so simple. It's unbelievable. You literally download the app, your little plus sign, you go to a website and download one of these ROM files, and you say add.
Yeah.
and
the
boom,
ROM files are super small too. Like these games are teeny.
Yes,
does it emulate the controls, or what do you do? Just
so it does. Yeah, it emulates the controls based on the system look. So it's touch screen. Or on this Delta version, which I have not played with yet, but I have downloaded, you can Bluetooth controller to it. So
up, down, left, right.
Yep, that's it.
I just think it's because Apple has such a good relationship with the EU. They just wanted to listen to everything they said, and they wanted to spread the love of emulation out of the goodness of their heart to allow everybody to play video games that might not have access to them, like on their fancy iPhones.
Yeah, that brings me to like what I wrote down about this story is like regulations changing technology. And you know me and how I'm not a super fan of Apple, but I'm also not a fan of the EU basically forcing them to put things in their store that they normally would not allow in their store, especially something as problematic as this. Like,
well, I wonder why the emulator's the hill that EU wanted to die on. Like, why is it? Why is it that? Like, it's clearly for copyright purposes. There's no other reason for it.
I don't think it was mentioned, like, I don't think it's specifically emulators, but I think it was like game distribution. And like, if you're looking at the actual like regulation, it's like Steam, where it's like a game distribution platform that this kind of falls under and goes with that. Like, so I think it wasn't necessarily that like, oh, we have to allow emulators. It was like they have to allow this type of thing, and this falls under that type.
Yep. Here's the thing: there is no Nintendo version of this application, at least yet.
Sure.
That allows for the legal purchase of these. There isn't. And I agree. There probably should be. What should have happened here is Nintendo should have just made their own version of an emulator on an iPhone and push that out and allow you to buy the games on it. And maybe that's where we end up, because maybe that's then they're going to come back and like they'll end up having to remove these.
I don't think
they will.
I don't think they'll ever do that because they really love suing people. Because it's just much more fun for Nintendo because they could have done this so long ago, but instead they're just like, no, we're not going to have a release version of this game anymore. You could never play it again.
I'm with Kevin. I think Nintendo's missing out here. They should make an emulator and then make a Game Pass.
For
just
sure.
like Xbox stuff.
They should. I would buy it.
I would buy the Switch finally if that was the case. It's the same thing with like
need a Switch though at that point because they can just
but I would actually still buy one, because I would appreciate the service.
You're like, I support.
It's like the same thing with like when, like for instance, back in the day in the college years, like Napster was a thing and everybody loved downloading stuff from Napster, and now it's like so easy and convenient through all these streaming services to get music that it almost takes way more effort to try to get those. Like the music, the old-fashioned way, and it's the same with emulators. If they made the process very easy, no one will go, like, just out of the sheer convenience of it, through the process of trying to get ROMs from illegal sites or like what have you, and put on. Like, if you make it, and that's what they should do for sure.
Yep.
But they like suing people.
To Paul's point, for as illegal as Napster was, there's no doubt that it completely changed how we consume music. Like. Whether that was heading in that direction or not, like the Napster was the catalyst to like force it out, and that it worked. I mean, like, and I think it's in the that Facebook movie. I forget what the Facebook movie is called.
Social Network.
Social Network.
Social Network. Yeah. He's like, you want to buy a Tower Records? Like, nope, because they don't exist anymore.
Yep.
Because it totally changed the whole industry.
It's also the plot line of Italian Job. So.
Right. Oh, I know. I'm the Napster.
The real Napster.
Because I was napping.
Oh, that's a good line. Yeah, I remember that
love
part.
that.
So I wonder if this will force Nintendo into the game then, or like Paul says, force them to sue. I'm kind of with Paul. I think I'd like them to get into the game and force an app onto here. I think it'd be great, but I think they're more likely to sue. And the question is, who do they sue? Do they sue, like in this guy, this is an individual person that created this Delta app? Do they sue the people who make the apps? Or because there's nothing technically they're doing wrong, technically, because they're just, it's the facilitation part.
Yeah.
It's the same as Napster, right? But again, Napster got sued. Napster wasn't sharing files, but they were the facilitator. So is it the same kind of thing? Or do they go after Apple?
I think they might have to at some point go after Apple because like for two reasons. Number one, from like, I'm not saying that like when a single developer makes an emulator, like for whatever reason, like they're obviously not, well, I don't know how much money they're making. They're not making billions. It's not like
it's
Apple.
a free app. There's
Right. It's right. And so the point is what they typically do with folks like that, I forgot there's a term for it, but they will sue you beyond the universe to set an example for other people not to do it. So it's like that person who developed that emulator would be like the fall guy, and none of these big corporations would get anything, and somehow maybe something will happen. But I think what I would like to happen is Nintendo sue Apple and then go from there, and then somehow it goes back to you being like, listen, you made a dumb decision. Like, why'd you do that? Like, but I don't think it will. Like I don't know what's the gameplay for EU. Like, do they like, I mean, I don't know enough, but I'm kind of like, do they come up with these rules and then like if you break it, like you have to pay them money, and then if you and
it's
if
a money
they
generator
like
for them.
right, and if they don't really like you, like Apple, they don't like Apple, they'll just tell Apple what to do, not because it benefits the world. It's more of a, like, we made Apple do the thing we wanted to. It's like a big brother like forcing their little like brother to be taxes,
like,
man. Go pick up that cat doo-doo, like, and put it on your head. You know what I mean? For no reason whatsoever. Literally, like that. They're like, we could assert our dominance and power, but why?
It feels that way.
Why? Like, what do you like? I always wanted to know who benefits. Like, do we benefit from it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here's the thing they might have an argument for against Apple is Apple is clearly taking down ones that are violating copyright. So if they're leaving one up that also violates copyright, they have a case because they're like, okay, you removed these ones. Why didn't you remove this one? This is also violating copyright.
And because it's an original emulator.
But here's the thing. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think Apple, this is how Apple operates. All their lawyers know the law like better than anybody else. And they know, like, so for instance, like I asked someone a question because I wanted to make a website for musicians to come and share like music that they're working on and have like a collaborative effort, like with beginners just talking about music they make. And I asked my friend, well, what happens if someone uploads a copyrighted song? Like, how do who's responsible? And he said to me, if you take it down within, like, as soon as you find out, there's like a time that you have to take it down. And as long as you take it down, you're not held responsible. So Apple could do this indefinitely, where they just like thousands emulators will come up and they'll continue to come up and they'll just take them down, but they'll still keep the process going. And it's just going to be this inconvenience for, Nintendo, because it's like, hey, people still making emulators, even though they're like, for instance, you got an emulator that's no longer in Apple Store, but guess what? You still have it. You could still use it. And so, so it's like creates this like area, like gray area of, it's like, we're not really technically doing anything illegal. We follow all the laws. We're going to take down everything you tell us. And now just going to create this like S show, like for everybody. And it's like EU will look dumb. I feel like,
I see us in the future talking about this story again.
Yeah,
in a week or 2 weeks, figuring out who's suing who.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's time again to talk about the Humane AI pin. We've talked about this here before. I think we've made jokes about this here before.
We
I
sure
called it
did.
first.
We
We
sure
called
did.
it first. I'm not even going to beat around the bush.
We were the original ones.
We're the originals. You know,
I don't know
said
what
it
our
first.
exact quote was, but we didn't have positive things to say about it
No.
as an
At all.
idea. So
We sure didn't.
turns out when people get their hands on it, somebody like MKBHD, it didn't do so well either in actual real world testing. So the Humane AI pin, they describe
Shocking.
just right as a quick review. The Humane AI pin, this is how they describe it as themselves. It is an innovative wearable device that redefines the interaction with AI, offering a discreet yet powerful way to stay connected. So this is a $700 or $800 device, as you can see here, depending on which configuration you get. That also includes a $24 a month plus tax and fees subscription. So MKBHD got one of these. That is Mark S. Brownlee is the guy. That's the MKBHD is the brand name that he uses on YouTube. 18.7 million
I was
subscribers.
gonna say he's got a
So,
couple subscribers.
You know, he's
Just a
pretty
couple more than
influential.
us.
Just a
Pretty
couple more
influential.
than us.
Just a couple, exactly.
We're so close.
Yeah, we're
So
really
he made a video titled "The Worst Product I've Ever Reviewed for Now." So the for now is like the hey, just something worse could come, but this is pretty
I
bad.
doubt it.
Yeah.
So so you can say his review wasn't shining, right? I don't know if you guys watch this. It's a 25-minute review. It's he didn't have a lot of nice things to say about it, other than he did say it was well built. Like he did say the thing itself is solid, it's metal, it's nice, which is a good and a bad thing because apparently it's so well built that when you clip it on things, it kind of sags your shirts.
I was gonna say it's got to be
which was-
heavy then. Yeah.
Which was one of my original complaints. Like I wear
Right.
t-shirts, putting on a t-shirt is going to be a terrible experience.
Yeah.
Like I just know it's going to be a terrible experience. So that turned out to be true. His biggest thing was that the phones are currently so capable and so good at the things that this is trying to replace that it doesn't do better than the phone, and the phone you already have does better at most of the stuff that this is even trying to do, if not all of the things this thing tried to do.
Right.
One of the biggest things that were missing were app integrations. Like you can't use it to like order something on Amazon or call an Uber or book a ticket with an airline or any of the things that you can do with certain AIs on your phone. So that was one of the biggest things. There's no integrations with it. So he gave it a bad review, right? I guess he doesn't give star ratings, but this is like 1. Maybe even if he could give star ratings, this is a half, maybe even a 0 out of 5.
Negative 20.
Right. So he basically slated it. He said it was bad. So he has now been accused of killing this product. This review, plenty of people have come out on social media and said, you've killed this product.
All right. I'm not going to call anyone a moron today. What I'm going to say to you, people that think that, like, look at the product and it speaks for itself. Like, what's stopping me from getting Velcro for my phone that's not that much bigger than that stupid thing? Velcroing on my shirt and having a better experience. Like, like Sarah's doing right there. It's perfect. And look at that. Like, for $700, like, I could buy used iPhone, $800 used iPhone, like 1.5 years old, and get all the features and make phone calls. Like, does that thing make phone calls?
It does. It has cell.
It does.
So it does. Yeah, it does.
Well, it's not. It's still. I would never buy it. Like, it's like it's the first thing that's reminded me of. It's like Big Brother everywhere. Because it has a camera, it sees everything that you do. What I like about the iPhone, like, because this way, like, for like the way you're gonna wear it, like, you always have to have it on. It's like I'm thinking like in their version of their world that for AI pin, and I don't even know what the proper name for it again is, but it's like everybody has one and everybody's so cool. And I'm like, no one is cool with like having a thing like hanging on your thing that's always watching. And my first issue that I have with it, like, with my phone, like, I have to go like this. I have to look at you. Like, you could be like, hey, don't point your phone at me. Like, I don't feel like, but this thing, everybody's going to have one. It's going to be so custom. It's always watching. It's always like taking in data. And,
always watching.
Yeah. And my biggest thing with it, first of all, like, a lot of issues. But the second thing is like, who controls the data? Number 2, what's the law around you always having it on? And let's say you go to a restaurant, you go to a restroom, you forgot you have that thing on. Like, just all these things. Like, And to me,
Depends on
like
the
outside
state.
of it being stupid because everything an iPhone could do better, but the second thing is just like I don't see the use case for it. Like it's still like it just is stupid. And for anybody that says that he ruined the reputation of the company, no, the company ruined their own reputation by building a crappy product that doesn't have a user. The only people that are going to spend $800 on this are people. Actually, no one's going to spend $800. Like unless people
are people who make YouTube videos.
Yeah, people that do YouTube videos. Like
and then
there's
return
no
it.
Use case.
And,
No use case.
right.
Yeah, and return. There's no use case for it at all, and like it doesn't solve any particular issue well. Like like the thing that this reminds me of, it's like one step above like an ankle bracelet. Like if you have like you've been arrested and now you're no longer like you're on probation, and so it's just an easier tool because now it has like camera functionality, and you
that's its greatest use case.
So actually, if they were smart and they rebranded and they just created Ankle Bracelet Point 2, which has AI chat where you could talk to your probation officer in real life, and then you have because it's using vision to identify what's going on. Like I might be like a person where I'm like going to an ATM and I see a like elderly woman there, and right before I think of anything, it's like, hey, I could see what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You should probably like listen. You should probably go back home. I could see the use case for it. Like it's that. Like I mean, I think like even if like maybe the tech is good, they're just using it not in a very novel way where there's a need for it. Like this, there's so many use cases. Like I think it's like. Maybe the tech is good. I'm like rethinking it in real time. I
don't think you're wrong with that. I don't think the tech is good. I think the tech isn't good enough. That's part of the problem. The camera's crappy. The AI is always wrong. It's the tech isn't good. The tech is just okay. It's not good enough for this device.
Let's give him benefit of the doubt. Let's say it was a little bit better. I still don't see the use cases for us as individuals, but for paramedics, firefighters, police officers, that would have been a cool thing. You have a camera that's able to identify stuff and give you like I mean I was going to say real time right, let's assume we're living in a fantasy world. I'm just trying to explain to like the people that hating and saying how it was a bad product to begin with. I'm just trying to give the benefit for those other people who thought he ruined the whole company with his bad review. Like first of all, like here's the thing for me, like where are these people living that are like, oh my God, you made a review, you've ruined the whole company. It's like, I've never bought, like, I've watched tech reviews and I never bought a product just because, like, the reviewer said so. You know what? Right. Like, the reviewer's like, it is good, you should buy, because, like, sometimes they lie. You buy it because...
Or they're paid.
Or they're paid, right? A lot of times so I appreciate his honesty, but a lot of times you buy the product because it's good. It's good and you pay money. And if it's bad, you don't pay money.
Well, it also has to be good for you.
Yeah.
Right? A reviewer might give you a review of something. You watch a review on YouTube or something, and it's like, let's say it's a review of a golf club, right? And you see it and it's like, this is the best golf club ever. I don't play golf, so I wouldn't buy a golf club. You know what I mean? It's like, it has to be for a certain person. It still has to be for you. So unfortunately, I think you're right. This product isn't actually for anybody. It doesn't. There's no market.
It's for Starship captains,
right? If it was cheaper, I would buy a bunch of them for all the neighborhood cats, and then I would write a program that would like track the cat's adventures, and you would have like AI generated stories.
A collar, like it doesn't need to be
exactly.
This
so even that for that use case, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I have really hard time. Like someone, like how did they pitch this? And here's another thing, like we were talking off the show, Kevin, you said they had crazy people who basically invested money into it. Yes. Yeah, Rabbit, like 100% is already better.
So yes, this is my question. Do you think then
I'm buying this,
the Rabbit is a worthy product then in the same similar kind of category?
Well, so here's the thing, like Rabbit, I had like my reservations about initially, and then when I like did a little bit more I didn't do enough of research. It's probably still going to be crap, but what they're selling, they're not selling the device, they're selling the service.
Right.
The device just happens to be the way you consume the service, but it's their OS that basically allows you. So like right now, if you want to use different like things and different services, there's no way to single-handedly connect everything together. So like the promise of this device is that it will connect everything together where you could have one place to have a conversation and ask, hey, I want to order pizza. I want to go to the movies. I want to plan this flight. And you don't have to use individual, like, I guess, APIs or endpoints. Like, it just all connected and makes it easier. So I think there is a use case for that. And so with the pin, like, I just don't see like a use case. And like, how did they pitch it and why, unless it's a money laundering scam?
Maybe. This is also a quarter of the price too, by the way. It's $200. This is one of those devices that could be like I don't know, like more of a throwaway purchase, like just to try, maybe. I think more people will try this. Whether it actually serves a need again, I don't know. I don't know who needs this. My point when we talked about this before is I don't know who this is marketed to.
Yeah.
This is an app with a device kind of being sold. It's just, I don't know that it's, again, going to be good. I envision MKBHD's review of this being very similar to the Humane AI pin. I just do. I think it's going to be similar.
My question, and I don't know if it was clear or if you even know, what did he purchase the AI pin, or was he gifted the AI pin?
He always buys them.
Yeah. Okay. Smart. Yeah. Like, cause that's the big thing. Like, if a company sends me a device to review and I hate it, I'll usually tell them, hey, I hated it. This is what I'm going to say. If you want me to proceed with the review, I will do so. But if not, then
right, you give them kind of the option to dip out.
Right. I'm like, I'm not sending it back or anything like that, but like, this was terrible and I'm not going to say nice things. They're usually like, yeah, that's cool, don't say anything. But like, it's nice if you buy it, because then like he can say whatever he wants. It's not his fault that the company or the product is crap. So
yeah, I think that's it. He can say whatever he wants. And I think we kind of have the same thing here too when we're talking about, because we talk about stuff here all the time. We technically do kind of our reviews here, right? We have our not law section where we recommend products that we say is good or bad. So I mean, while we don't have the same reach that MKBHD does, of course, we're not saying 18 million people. Close. But it's the same kind of things apply. The same kind of ethical standards apply to us.
Right.
If we were paid to say something, we'd have to say that we were paid to say something.
Right.
But otherwise, just give our honest opinion. And should we be held responsible for something doing well or not doing well? No.
Nope. Yeah, for sure.
The only thing I got to say is that one time, the only thing I have to say about this whole thing is that me and MKBHD have traded texts before.
Ooh.
So
cool.
Not about this,
Bobby's
but about
super
something
special.
Nice.
So
Bobby's rubbing shoulders, name dropping.
I mean, he sent me a prayer hand emoji, and so we're best friends now. So
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
That's it.
For sure.
So anybody here heard of this before? Ernie, the apparently 200 million user chatbot that you've probably never heard of. None of us have heard of it. And
when you have like a billion people in your country, then like 200 million, not hard to get to. Yeah.
Because it's only available in China. It's basically China's equivalent of ChatGPT, I guess. It's from Baidu, so it's China only. It's only available in China. You can't get outside of China, apparently. We can't actually download it on our app stores. So I did look to see, and you can't. But it has 220 million users, apparently. I thought this was interesting. Do you know, by the way, that the article did go over why it's called Ernie, and it was because it's supposed to be like an acronym for the thing. It's Enhanced Representation Through Knowledge Integration, which, by the way, would
like
be
knowledge K. I was wondering if it's like maybe the Chinese words for it or something.
Wait, did you say People's Republic Education Program? Or
right.
I misheard you.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. I was like, you do know knowledge is with a K,
I literally have knowledge N.
I just thought that was weird. I was like, okay, I guess you're just making it, shoehorning it in there as much as you can, Just
he's
like,
ashamed to admit that he watches Sesame Street. That's what it really was.
Greatest show ever, by the way.
Of course.
So this got me thinking, just because we'd never heard of this and apparently has a massive following over there, and we're never going to be able to see it. And likewise, they never technically legally get to see ChatGPT either. So this kind of, it made me think about this like segregation, right? There's this global segregation of AI, right? So in China, they're using a certain AI that's trained on a certain data set. We're in the US over here using a totally different AI that's maybe similar because China has some issues with stealing proprietary information. I'm sure they didn't just create this out of thin air. I'm sure this is based on something, would be my guess. Not an accusation, just a guess. So what do you think, Paul? What do you reckon? Is it going to matter that we have these different AIs with their own training data sets? And
I'm so curious about it because obviously they need to have only their training data. So they couldn't even use our training data because, China, as free as it is, they still want to keep an eye on the conversations people have. And so it's like, I would be very curious to see the data that it's trained on because I'm sure it's cherry picked. Another thing that I'm kind of curious about is it like, how we could jailbreak ChatGPT and ask it sometimes to give us things that it's not supposed to answer. Like, how is that part of it filtered in China to prevent people from asking things that they're not supposed to? Because ChatGPT hallucinates, it says some crazy stuff. So here's one thing I'm curious about. And also like in line of another story of Amazon, where I think in 2013, they created this service where people go to the store and they just randomly pick stuff. And True AI was able to kind of tally up all the items they pick and bill them. Apparently, it's people somewhere did the final check in India who watched the actual video to do that. So I'm kind of curious, is it True AI for Ernie bot, or is it a government-sponsored like chat, which has people? I'm not saying like it doesn't use some AI, but it is highly monitored and structured. So when they see someone as a prompt, it gets flagged and the human. Like I'm kind of curious, how does that work? Just because like I know like they're very particular about what kind of stuff you're able to discuss in like public Discord. And
right.
I wonder like and I wonder if someone says something that is not favorable to their, the local government, like what happens?
My guess is it is monitored. And my guess is also that the training data doesn't include those things they don't want it to include. This is like why when you're there and you've been, Sarah, right? You can, right. There is the Chinese firewall, right? There's certain things that you cannot get in or out, and there's data that you cannot get in or out. If you're in China and you search with, let's call it Google, if you Google for certain things in China, Tiananmen Square being one of them,
I literally wrote down Tiananmen Square.
Right. It doesn't pull it up. And I'm wondering if it's even part of this training data. My guess is that it isn't.
Right.
And it creates this weird fragmentation of like these AIs where their training data and how they're actually functioning is very kind of secular, right? It's very much like country specific.
Yeah.
Segregated.
I'm still very curious because I don't think it's like I want to play with it now. Because, for instance,
I do too.
Remember when we talked about like in past episode about aliens, and if we ask ChatGPT, are aliens real? And it's like, no, of course aliens are real. Like it gives us like the proper answer. But then if you start a conversation, my friend was abducted by these type of aliens. Can you tell me what other types of aliens exist? It'll go ahead and tell you a bunch of different species of aliens that exist because it can't self-monitor. Like you could trick it. And so like, is that something that you're capable to do on this system? Because
if I was writing a TV show and it was about Tiananmen Square,
right?
What could it possibly be about? Like,
Yeah, if it's an LLM, it's in there. So like,
right?
Yeah, so like that's how it works. It predicts what they think the next logical word is.
Yeah, but don't forget, it's only in there because it's part of the training data set. If it's not part of the training data set, is it in there?
But if they started with llama or something like that, then
right.
Well, that was one of my other points.
They'd have to manually take out the stuff they don't
I don't
want.
think you can.
Did they create the thing, or did they just copy it?
Right.
My guess is they copied it.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder like how it works. It's like if you ask a question like about Tiananmen Square, it'll be like thinking, just enough time for people to like run up the stairs to your house and kick your door down.
Yes, there's a phone somewhere ringing.
Thinking. And next thing you're arrested, still thinking.
Yeah. And I think I've said this before on the podcast, but like when I was in China, we were like being led around by, a tour guide and whatever. And we had somebody who was, I think, like born in China, but like grew up in Australia, or maybe it was New Zealand, one of those two. Anyway, we're like driving around and she's like explaining about like some like historical event that like happened here. And like Jin was like literally like, yeah, that's not what happened.
Wow.
And like, it's just crazy though, because they're like, so entrenched in like what they have been told is history. Like, and how do you like fix a large language model to like mesh with that? Like, that's what's like, I don't know how they can do that.
I don't think you can.
Right.
You can't, and like, you can see when Google Gemini was released, it had all kinds of issues. But that's why they pulled it.
But clearly, China wouldn't allow this if they couldn't somehow control it.
Exactly.
Well, I'm sure they put gates around it and try to look for definitive things that's being asked. They probably could track of all the prompts here. What are the prompts that went through? And then it's like, oh, we don't like that prompt. And then they try to gatekeep it. But if it is an LLM, it can be tricked, man. You can break it.
To Sarah's point, when she said that you have 1 billion people and 200 million is like a very small number, very easy to get that. That means there's like 400 people who are pretending to be your chatbot who happen to work for the local government organization.
200 people are users.
Please,
and 200 people are answering those questions.
Please tell me more. What did your neighbor do that you found distasteful? Can you please send me the address? It's like,
it does make me wonder. Maybe there is some kind of escalation. I would not be surprised if there isn't some kind of like flag system that says certain chats that happen, certain things that happen do go to a person. It's not all in a black box. There's no way it's all in a black box.
Yeah,
they are moderating it somehow
100%.
with real people for sure.
Let me ask you a question, Kevin. Do you think OpenAI's is in a black box? Do you think that none of those are being monitored?
Man, I don't know.
I think everything gets monitored. Like, I would say, I think like what I would
Paul's
tell everybody in your ass.
Hat on.
No, everything gets logged for 100. Like we have mundane services where we log certain user information just because it's just a practice that's so common. And so like everything gets logged on the internet. The issue is like we still have enough freedom where you could speak your mind until you act on something that breaks a law. Like you're not going to be hauled away and no one will ever see you again. Right. So like we're still able to kind of enjoy this freedom. Like for instance, I've seen so many Simpson episodes where they made fun of Trump. They made fun of Putin. They made fun of every president available. You cannot do that in certain other countries. Like, and to me, the fact that we live in a country where anybody could make fun of anybody and you're still able to enjoy your freedom, even though our country is not perfect, is amazing to me. And that's why, like in places like China, I'm very curious with these type of technologies where it cannot just be like a standalone system. Like we could still have like here, we could still have ChatGPT say some wild stuff, and it's hilarious, right? It's just because it's but in China, they can't afford that. Like, imagine like ChatGPT gets confused. I'm not saying they're using ChatGPT, like, because there was another interesting like chatbot story where I forgot what it was. It was like some company which had a helpful ChatGPT, and after interacting with the helpful service, their chat started first of all swearing at the customer and then talking how bad the company was. So because it completely went off the rails. And so they can't afford stuff like that in China. Like, imagine it starts saying like, democracy is the greatest thing ever. It's like, are you kidding me? Like in China, and so like
it'll just go offline. That's
right.
But what I'm saying is that like I'm kind of curious, how does that work? And don't get me wrong, like in US, things are monitored. Like used to, when ChatGPT first came out, you used to be able to ask it like random questions where it would give you some sort of answer. Now it'll say stuff like, I'm not capable of answering that, or blah, blah, blah. Like it just, so everything is monitored. And
unless you use ASCII art, then you can ask it anything.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
exactly.
But now that I think about it, back to your question, Bobby, do I think that OpenAI stuff is monitored? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking if somebody goes on there and they're talking about, I don't know, stuff that's illegal or how to build a bomb or something crazy like that, they're going to get flagged somewhere. We may never hear about that stuff, but that's just like searching for it. Same on the internet. Google's keeping those records as well. If somebody has a certain criteria that they're looking for, yes, they're going to go on some list somewhere to get looked at. They're not going to get, like Paul said, they're not going to get like jumped up on for something they haven't done yet, but they're certainly going to get added to a list of being like, this is a potential for when something does happen. Here's your list of people who may have done it.
Right. Well, not only that, but like that data will come in at trial where they're like, this person performed a search on how to dispose of a body.
Right. Yeah, we hear those things all the time, don't we?
Right.
And I think like the difference in US still is the fact that like something needs to happen, right? And then that stuff is going to be used against you in court to prove you're guilty.
Exactly.
But you do get some semblance of benefit of the doubt that you're not going to do like stuff like, whatever. So it's kind of interesting, like in China, that with everything and how they perceive to keep like people's perception, I am curious how that works. And that's why I don't think it's a true AI chatbot the way they are here in US.
Sure.
Well, I wouldn't use it if it does get rid of it. I'm sure they won't let it be exported to the because
the US won't even allow it. I guarantee
they shouldn't.
No. Yeah.
They shouldn't. And like
I mean, we're talking about banning TikTok. They definitely wouldn't.
It would be funny though, because we are a nation of trolls. So like we would talk about the emperor or whatever his name is a lot.
True.
On it.
True. This is true.
What would be hilarious if TikTok all of a sudden has a service, a helpful chatbot.
Well, I
and
think
it's
it
not
does.
Ernie, but it's
Snapchat.
powered by Ernie. You know what I'm saying?
Bert.
It's like yeah, exactly. It's like Bert on TikTok. And then like the tagline is like totally different than the Ernie bot. That's
totally
sponsored by the party.
It's not the same.
People's Party.
Okay, it's the time of the week to talk about our nulls and our not nulls. Bobby, you're up first.
All right, I didn't really have one until we started here, so I've got a TV show recommendation on Disney Plus, believe it or not. And me and Cameron talked earlier. I watched the surprise show, The Artful Dodger.
And
you would think, I know, you would think that it would be bad because it's on Disney, but this is actually surprisingly good. And believe it or not, it's kind of like a love story. So you and the wife can watch it,
Nice.
It's good for everyone. It's got a little action. It's gorier than you think because it's about like surgery in the 18th century.
Wow.
But it's attached
I can see
it's attached to
like
Oliver
there's a
Twist.
guy on a table and they were.
I don't know.
He's attached to Oliver Twist. This guy was in Oliver Twist, the book. This guy.
Yeah, this is like
So
Charles
this is the
Dickens.
sequel.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good.
That's
And it's all got heist elements to it. It's really good.
I'm gonna
the guy
check that out.
That guy was in Harry Potter. That guy, he was. So
Cool.
Pretty
Yeah,
good.
I
It's
like them.
technically Hulu,
The
not
actor
Disney
guy's great.
Plus. I mean,
it's
but
on
they're
Disney
the
Plus.
same.
It's
Well,
on
they're the
Disney
same.
Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's through Hulu. Yeah.
It's through Hulu. Yeah.
Yeah, it's through Hulu. Yeah, they've kind of really
It's
started
all the
combining them
violent
now,
stuff
haven't
on
they?
Hulu.
That's why when I watched it on Disney
Right.
Plus, I'm like, wow, they cut that guy open. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a different show. I like it.
I do like this actor too. He's really good. I didn't know his name, but I do like him. I liked it. I looked at this earlier. I do recognize him from I watched Pistol. Remember, Pistol was one of my recommendations before. It's really good. It's like a mini series about the Sex Pistols. It's really good. And he plays the Malcolm McLaren, the band manager in it. It's really good.
He was
I bet
in
my
Maze
husband
Runner.
would like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's super well done. And it's 4x3 as well the whole time, which is weird, but it's like it's a throwback. It's good.
Oh, that's super
it's good.
interesting.
Artful
really
Dodger.
good show. Yeah,
Artful Dodger and Pistol.
I would definitely add this to
I'm
my
gonna
list.
write both of these down.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to check this one out for sure. Definitely. Okay, Sarah, what you got this week?
Wait, what was that? So originally we were going to meet last week, but we had, there was family emergency. So we didn't get to, but I really, really, really wanted to talk about this April Fool's joke that Owala did. And my favorite, like Owala, and I should have brought it, but anyway, so they did this color drop. Like you can see the Jorts one, like the jeans looking one. Yeah. So they basically announce this bottle on April Fool's Day, right? And everyone's like, oh, it's a total joke, whatever. Well, the next day they literally drop the bottle and you could buy it. So obviously I totally bought it. Yeah. But like, this is what we were going to talk about last week with, if you're going to do an April Fool's joke, you gotta like release the product. And this was like kind of the perfect example. Like, and seriously, as I was buying it, I thought for sure, like along the process, it would have been like, it was an April Fool's joke. Like, we're not really selling it. But no, the bottle came. It was great. But
geniuses.
I know, right? So, like, to all the companies out there, if you're gonna do an April Fool's joke, this is the way to do it.
To me, this is the only way to do an April Fool's joke because I hate the other ones. It's a day that I avoid the internet. And then the way the internet works now, it's actually 2 days because it flows over into the next day.
Right.
So it's so bad. I just don't deal with it.
So you didn't laugh when Xbox said that they sold Xbox to Nvidia on April 1st?
No, I didn't even see that. So that's how much I avoided the internet. If you asked me one of the April Fools this year, I wouldn't have a clue. I avoided all of them. But at least they gave a product here. This is the only way to do it, is release the actual product.
Yeah.
So it's not really an April Fool's joke.
Not really an April Fool's joke.
It's not. What's one that came?
But I mean, it's a joke because it's kind of like a really weird looking bottle.
I mean, yeah, it's funny. I think it's so smart and clever. It's whoever came up with that whole campaign. I hope they got like a big raise.
Right. Well, and here's the even funnier part. So Owala bottles, like I said, I forgot to bring my Jorts bottle, but like has a straw built in, right? The straw on the Jorts is skin colored.
Oh, that's funny. Like it's a leg going.
Wow,
that's funny.
Okay, that's deep. I like that.
That's funny. Yeah, okay, that's good. I like that.
Right?
That's good.
Right?
Little touches like that, that's
yeah, super funny. So anyway, I love my Jorts bottle.
Awesome.
So can I ask a dumb question? Why is it called Jorts? J's for Jean. I'm trying to work out the ORT.
Jean shorts, like basically. Yeah.
Jorts. Okay. Yeah. I don't wear jorts at home. So. Okay.
It would have been cool if it came with jorts.
Right?
For your water bottle.
Right?
Can't say I've ever worn jorts in my entire life either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, what you got this week?
Another show. I had a Null, but I'm gonna save it for next week. Because I do have a not Null and Fallout TV show. I loved it. I think it's
my
really
husband
good.
loved it too. Yeah,
I didn't
really
watch
it, but
it's really good. I binge watched it. I
no
watched
spoilers.
it Thursday night into Friday morning, and then at work I'm like, still worth it. Still worth it.
Worth it.
Yes,
yeah, I've heard it's good.
Yeah, awesome. 8 episodes. That was also going to be my not Null, by the way.
Oh, how funny.
So how good is that? I mean, how much of a glowing recommendation is that two of us independently chose the same show as our not Null? That's how good this is.
Walter Goggins is so good in this. He's so good. I mean, like,
the show was so good that I brought out my old copy of Fallout VR, Fallout 4 VR, so I could just walk in that universe and just.
Can you get an emulator for Fallout?
I'm sure you can.
You can get them on Game Pass, all of them. If you have Game Pass on an Xbox or a PC, they're all on there. Which brings me to another point, actually, that they saw a massive uptick in players, the most they've ever seen on Fallout because of this TV show. Steam had the biggest player base ever playing Fallout because of this TV show.
I think
that's crazy.
The Witcher series started that cycle, and where it really showed how powerful this was. And of course, Todd Howard needed this. But when, good Lord, Cyberpunk came out, it had really terrible kind of like reviews initially. And after the show came out, all of a sudden it fixed all the issues it had. Everybody loves the game. The game is amazing now. So if anybody knows Bethesda and their reputation in releasing games, they needed Fallout 4 to get some more players to play Fallout 76 at least. Jesus.
Yeah, so I played Fallout 4 and I broke it because I went into my very first town and I'd never played a Fallout game before in my life. And I always play like first-person shooters. So I just went in the town and shot everyone. And it kind of like broke all the NPCs and everything. You're not supposed to be able to do that. But I murdered the entire town because I just thought that's what you did.
No, that's actually you're supposed to do.
It's Tommy's coming in.
That's actually a normal way to play all the Bethesda games.
And then I went straight up to the Brotherhood's top ship very in the beginning, and I killed a guy up in the very top ship, and it just broke all of. And so I had to start the game over so I could get the whole story because the Brotherhood was gone. Like, well, there goes that story. Good job, Bobby.
Oh, that's funny.
So anyway,
good show though.
I do want to replay it now that I've watched it because it was kind of cool.
Yeah. I have to say, I did start playing Fallout 4 again. So I'm one of the people who have.
I was going to say, seems like you are not the only one for sure.
Get the VR version. It's like you might have to install some mods, but it's being inside the world is like, even if you just play the first part, like leaving the vault, in VR.
Okay.
It's like Jesus. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And I will say they did a very good job on the show of taking things from the game into the show. Like everything's there that you think of. The helicopter things, I don't know what they call them, but that's there. The suits of armor are correct. Like the little things like the Nuka-Cola and the signs and the thumbs and everything is there. Everything from the game is in the show. It's very true to the game.
You've seen 2 episodes, so it's in the second episode is when she walks into the store and the little bobblehead's there. So I collected all the bobbleheads in the entire game. So like, they're like, oh, she saw it and she looked at it like, I don't want that. What? You got to get the bobblehead. What are you doing?
And it was just as violent as the video games.
Oh, it's violent.
It's super violent.
Yes.
And
it's graphic warning for anybody who's going to watch it.
And it has
very graphic.
Very dark humor, which I appreciate. Like if you if you play the games, that's like normal to the games, like the dark humor and like whatever. But there's some funny things where I audibly caught myself laughing because I saw all this show, so I'm not gonna spoil anything, but definitely keep watching. There's lots of funny parts where I was just dying laughing. I was like,
there's a YouTube video out there that calculates Lucy, the girl that's in the show, her level at the end of the show.
So nice. How funny! Like if she was actually like in the game,
if she was a player, what her level would be.
That's fantastic. That's a great YouTube video.
Somebody's very smart, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they calculated it. It's these genius. It was very funny.
I will also say though, if you've never played the game, you don't have to have played the game to watch the show. The show is just good on its own. You don't have to understand all the deep cuts in it. They're there if you want them, but they don't force the show's just standalone is just good. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. I asked you to do a couple of things. If you could, please let a friend know about the podcast. That would be much appreciated. And if you would like to leave us a review and rating somewhere, that'd be great. Review suggestion is something like, I don't know, best podcast I've ever listened to, 5 stars, something along those lines would be amazing. Yeah. If you want to leave the one that just says this kind of sucked, just move on. It's okay. You don't have to listen, right? If you listen this far, you must give us 5 stars, please. Right. You can also drop us an email. Where can they drop that email to, Sarah?
The Not Null Podcast at AOL.com. So if you want to say this podcast sucks, just send us an email instead.
And we'll take it on board and try and fix it.
Right.
I promise.
Yeah.
And we'll catch everybody next week.